Okay, laying out the fuselage. When you do the fuselage, it's going to come with 4 10-inch spars. And we're going to put those on before we do any cutting of the fuselage. Now it comes in 2 pieces. So make sure, because there's going to be a top and a bottom, I should have a marked inside here somewhere indicating the top of the fuselage. If not, if you don't see it, there's just a little bit of difference in the tail in there. This is a little bit shorter than this one. That's the top. But what's going to be important is there is a little bit of difference. So you want to make a mirrored copy of this. So you want to make sure to mark, first off, just mark the top. And mark it right here. If you're going to, so we're going to cut this area out for the battery base. So you can cut it right, mark it right there so you can cut that out. But then you want to flip it over and make a mirrored image. So what you might do is mark the top here and the top there. So we're working on the same spot. So for instance, like this is going to be the inside. So just make sure, anyway, make sure you do a mirror copy of it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install the spars. And the reason for that is we want to get the spars put in there because when we cut this battery out, it helps keep it from bowing in. If you cut the battery out, then try to put the spar on there, when you glue it in, it will cause it to bow in. And the location of these spars is going to be pretty simple. What I do is I just put a piece of tape here and drew a center line. You can see that with a pencil. Probably do it with a Sharpie would be okay, so it's on that. And then I just took and went back from the leading edge, which is right here, 2 inches back. Okay, and this is going to be the starting point of the spar. And one way to mark this, you can use a pen or whatever, or pencil, but pens work pretty good. So I just put a pen right there where I'm going to start at, and then down here where it ends at, these are going to be located a 1/2 inch above the center line, right there on the outside. And we're going to put a top and bottom on the outside of each of the fuselage. And of course, to do that, we're just simply going to just score a line. Only about the pins, kind of makes it easy to line up. So we're going to take that tape off of there, and we're going to cut our slot there. Now that's just a little slot there to get started. Set our knife at our 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch depth, which is 1 click past it barely coming out on these knives. And we're just going to clean that slot up. This mess, it might be best to pull this tape off. This tape's just getting in the way. Yeah, I like to use tape on a lot of stuff just simply so I don't get marks on the phone, because a lot of my wings I don't paint. Paint adds weight. This one will probably get some paint though. Let's get this tape off then. So, and now what we're going to do is the spar is going to fit in that slot there. You can make sure you got a slot all the way down. Now everything I do, we're just using CA on everything. I like CA. Here I'm just kind of scoring in maybe about 1/8 of an inch. I like to go in and set my depth with the blade so they're both in at the same, everything's done at the same depth. There we go. Right now, we're going to do the other side. Again, remember, mirrored image copy, so this is the outside of it. So this comes up like this. This is going to be inside of this one. So obviously we're going to be doing, this is the outside, so we're going to be putting the spars on the outside of this one. Just keep that in mind. It's easy to get this thing mixed up. I've done it a couple times. And do the same thing layout on this side and put the 2 spars in. Real quickly, as I found out, here's the reason why we put the spars in before we do the cutout. And again, this needs to be trimmed up a little bit. But as you can see, these are nice and straight. Here's what happens if you cut this out and then put this spar in there. What will happen is the tension of the spar going in there causes these things to come in, and it causes it to go like that. So that's the reason we put these spars in first. Now that the spars are glued in, we've got outside spars in each one of those. On top, we've got a mirrored. We'll lay out the battery bay. And we've got the top of each one of the fuselages marked. So this one here we're going to take and just put us like a dot right there at the center of the nose. And now we need to run a straight edge, a line there, so we just kind of, about halfway, just eyeball that right there. And then run a line here. Okay. Now for the battery bay cutout, and it's going to cut out to the top. We're going to go in from the nose 2 1/4 inches. There's some mark there. And then the battery bay itself is going to be 7 inches long. So we're going to run that to right there. Now taking a protractor or a triangle, whichever one, just going to simply make sure to draw these lines perpendicular to that, and most importantly to the top where we're going to be cutting out at. Okay. Now to make that cutout, it's really actually pretty easy. Again, sharp knife is going to be required. We're going to make this anywhere from a 1/2 inch to a 5/8. 5/8 is pretty loose, 1/2 inch is kind of tight, but we're going to make it a 1/2 inch because I like the battery in there tight. So we're going to make the depth a 1/2 inch. So one thing we want to do is let's just take a blade, a loose blade like this, always works good, and mark it up a depth a 1/2 inch. I'm using a fine line Sharpie, obviously. And we've got the depth mark there, and we can just kind of make some tick marks here. This kind of just works as a guideline. 1/2 inch up, so we know what we're doing. Okay. Now the depth, which I forgot to run down. Okay, one line I forgot to draw here is we're going to need to draw the depth of the battery. We want that to sit about on the center line. So we're going to draw that down about 3/4 of an inch. Just extend this down 3/4 of an inch. I'm using this is a Turnergy 3.0 3000 milliamp battery pack that we're using. It's going to fit down inside there, which gives a little room to adjustment. Now, once we've got that set in there, this is our battery base, so this is the area we're going to cut out. So then when you draw it on the top, obviously you're doing a mirror copy. You can't see that mirror copy enough. So to cut this out, we'll start by cutting our straight lines. And since we've got this already set and our little marks there to a 1/2 inch deep, we're just going to kind of come close here, take them down straight to a 1/2 inch. Another mark I forgot to make here is we need to mark the top here, going off of this, 1/2 inch deep. You might want to use a pencil up here. Draw us a reference line here, 1/2 inch deep. Use a pencil, you'll make a line like yourself. And now we're going to cut this using our long straight edge here. We're going to cut these nice and straight and take it straight down to our 1/2 inch mark. Full depth of it, down to our 1/2 inch mark. Now it's going to help to cut one section, about right here. Go down to 1/2 inch. So we just run it over. We're going to cut these out sections at a time, at least a couple sections, and run that down to 1/2 inch. Now, take a real sharp blade and going in there as parallel as you can. We're going to go this, get that first section cut out. Here's that first section to cut out. You see, you don't have to go in far, and it's easy to make this one flush. Now, to cut the rest of them, we can kind of use this ridge right there, whoops, as a guideline. Let's hold the blade flush. Put that down to 1/2 inch. We forgot to do the bottom, didn't we? Straight there. Get down to 1/2 inch. Go. Go. And now look at the last piece. Spots you'll see, just clean that up. Now we have the battery bay cut out. Right there. Now we got to do is mark the other side, and again, I know I keep harping on this. Make sure you're doing a mirror copy. There's our spars on the outside, so we know this is going to be the opening up here. So we'll make sure that when we draw this out, it mirrors this. doing the cam cutout is not really all that difficult. Oops. I've taken my little drawing there and I've glued it in place. I use 3M77, but any type of glue that you can use to hold it in place will work just fine. Remember putting it on sideways, and so we've kind of set it back far enough that where the lens clears, so mark it exactly the same on each side. It's important to make sure this is the same on each side because these are going to fold together in a half. Now for this next step, you're going to need a Dremel tool. There's really hardly any other way to get around it. You're just going to have a Dremel tool. Either borrow one from a friend, or if you're going to get into building these things, a Dremel tool is, as far as I'm concerned, is an absolute necessity. I use it to route out all the servo cavities, any cavities, the VTX, the receiver, the regulators, everything I do, I use these things to route it out. I have an old router bit here, but you can get at the Home Depot and Lowe's, I think I call it a zip tool. They make a tile cutting bit, which is real similar to this. It's probably a better bit, and it's small. And there's a couple different sizes, but there's a small one. It's about $5 or $6. I meant to buy one last time I was down there, but I forgot. It'll fit these 1/8" collars. Do this cam cutout. Then we're going to need a sharp knife. Oh, the other thing we're going to do, we're going to need half of the depth of the cam, obviously. I'm using a Foxeer Predator on this one, so this is going to vary by which cam you put in. This thing's about 21 millimeters wide. So half of that on the fat end is going to be obviously 11. This area right here in the center is about 16 millimeters wide, plus or minus, give it a little bit. So half of that would obviously be 8 millimeters. I've got a piece of tape over here, you can see right there, which I just laid on the bench. And I've run out an 8 millimeter mark and 11 millimeter mark, so I can set the depth of my route. Okay, so the first thing we'll start with is the 8 millimeter, because that's the lowest one in there. But before we do that, we need to cut the outline of this camera. You're going to need a sharp knife. Okay, sharp knife is critical on all this foam cut to make it right. And it's real simple. We're just going to go right on the outside edge of the line, and we're going to cut into it. What this does is it allows the router bit something to do a guide on. Now, on this one, because the camera sticks out, or the lens sticks out a little bit further, we're going to have to extend it out a little bit. This sits in there, so this lens comes out to about, right about there. So we need to extend this cut out. Right about there. And again, sharp knife. What we'll do is we'll just cut it. That line. There. Cut the back of it. Now we should have a cut on all this right here. Now we're going to take this bit. This little drink of wine. I've got it set to 8 millimeters, which is half the width of the small size. And we're just going to route. Actually, we're going to just route the front part of it here, where the line is in. So. See, I routed out the front part of the camera. And it's going to fit in there. We can cut some of this out right now. Now we're going to set our depth to 11 millimeters. We'll route out the rear of it. At this point you got a cavity. This thing should fit in, kind of in there right now. There we go. Okay. Goes in like that. Obviously the lens on the front needs to be a little deeper because it's the center section, so we'll just kind of mark off where the lens is going to be too, right there. And this just happens to come out to about 11 millimeters too. Really what you're going to have is 11, a little bit of a ridge, not much, and then 11 in the front. Camera will fit in there like so. Now we need to cut this thing out at an angle to give it an angle, a viewing angle. And all this can be fine-tuned later. There. You get it done. The camera will fit in like so. And it needs to fit in kind of snug because we're going to push it in from the back. And there's still going to be some adjustment. You'll have to do a little bit of adjustment before you glue the halves together. Now to be able to slide the thing in and out, you got to make a channel, which is not hard. I'll just use a knife, and we're just going to cut it from the end there to the bottom of there, and there, yeah, about the same. And we make that cut flush with the bottom of that right there, as close as possible. Now, just like fitting a cam in a regular wing, this is a little bit of a trial and error. It's better to cut undersize and then slowly work your way up to make it fit like you want it, rather than make it too big to start with. For instance, this area back here, once you get it together, I found you got to kind of work with it to make sure you can get the camera in and out. So hopefully, when that goes in together like that, and we got everything lined up, we can put the two halves together, and we have the camera in there. And as you can see, we'll have to do a little bit of adjustment to the nose in order to get we'll probably cut this out here a little bit, this out here a little bit, and make it fit. And the way the camera goes in and out, and this is a little bit too tight right now, but we need to cut those channels down a little bit so when we glue it together we can easily push the camera and it kind of pops into place. To get it out, you just use your finger and push it straight through. Again, always make sure everything lines up and fits. And see how this one's going to take a little bit of adjustment to get the fuselage half together, because the most important thing on this fuselage, when this is done, is these backs have to line up absolutely perfectly flush and square. Because this is machined flat with a CNC, so when we put that firewall on there, as long as we glue this together and we put that firewall on there, that firewall is going to be perpendicular to the center line of the wing, because the CNC's cut it out that way. That way, when we slide the wing in, we're going to put a dowel sticking out, and we're going to put when we join and we'll do this in later videos, when we put the stab, will be a combination of stab and the booms will be glued together. We'll put that on and we'll set that stab straight. On these boomers, it is just absolutely critical, if you want it to fly right and fly straight without any adverse stuff going on, that everything works off the center line. This is all machined with a CNC, so that's accurate. And when that boom gets put on there, that stab has to be dead center with that thrust line. If not, if it's up just a little bit, you'll be using elevator to trim this thing out. And any elevator you use to trim it out is going to slow it down. And as you increase speed and decrease speed, it's going to change the way the characteristics of it. So the straighter you can get this thing, it's just an absolute must. So just keep that on eye. So well, the only point of all this was just we need to do a little more fitting of this camera to make sure this goes together and we can push this camera in and out this hole. It just needs to be snug. It doesn't need to come out real easy. It needs to come out kind of thick. But when we get to glue these things together, there's no question that these ends are going to be flush together. So when we glue it together, it'll be perfectly flush.